it. We have a pause now for the strike. Definitely, Nigerians felt the pinch Monday and Tuesday. We already saw 4 queues yesterday, but that has disappeared this morning. Thank God for that. But what next? That's what we're going to be discussing. Now, joining me on the show is Mr. Shola Obadimi, the Director General, Nigerian Association of Chambers and Commerce, Industry and Mines and Agriculture. That's NACCIMA. Joining me right here in the studio. Great to have you. Good morning.
Great to have me here.
And I'm sure it's a relief right now. We have a pause. This time, we're already feeling the heat.
Yeah, sure.
You know, yesterday, Nigerians felt it. I didn't have light till about late last night, so I was able to pump water, thank God. So I was able to bathe, this morning. But, looking at what you've seen, so far, the minister has 48 hours to come up with a template.
Yeah.
What are you expecting and what are you recommending?
Now, you see, it's we have to look at it a bit deeply. I represent the private sector. Well, we represent the private sector. And you see, I understand the labor's viewpoint, but we have to be conscious of some deeper issues also. Labor cannot be speaking as if government is the sole employer. The private sector people, in fact, let me tell you, most private sector organizations are already paying more than, as high as, I think it was at 60,000 naira that we deadlocked before this present, initiative. So most private sector employers are already paying something close to that.
Even for the most lower staff, the most vulnerable staff?
I mean, we can even look at channels here. But it's government agencies. Some states are still grappling with the 30,000 minimum wage, even as we speak. So, Labour cannot be addressing the issues as if government is the sole employer. The private sector, and these are things we know. Last year, let me talk about the big multinationals. Many of them ran losses for 2023. They audited reports. And on top of that, they were heavily taxed again. Imagine a company running a loss of 136 billion naira, getting taxed by another 36 billion naira. And some of them are thinking of moving or shifting. Some of them, many of them, they have descaled their capacity.
Yeah, we got the announcement last week for Kimberly Clark. Yeah, those ones are planning to...
In fact, I was refraining from naming names, but we know from our viewpoint, we are aware of several organizations that have either descaled, closed shop, or thinking of moving or moved. So we have to think, they are grappling with enough challenges as it is, rising energy costs, the cost of finance has gone up. Loans are between 30 and 40%. So, I mean, infrastructure hasn't really improved, So those basic things are there. So now, of course, a minimum wage issue will come. Cost of labor will also rise. They can only pay out of what they have sold. You can only give out what you have. So we have to balance these views together. So there is no point setting what people cannot pay. But again, like I said, I understand the labor viewpoint. They are looking at government alone, and they are probably looking at the government profligacy, wastefulness at government level, unnecessary spending. Why should a minister move with 10 cars, each costing about 200 million naira? And that's aside from the cost of maintenance, cost of fueling. So it could be annoying for some people that these people are talking about 30,000 to fuel one of these cars. You may have to spend 80,000, 100,000 naira. So it's insulting to some people. They may see it from. So that is a pointer to government to watch to set the right leadership example, to cut their costs, so that it will be easier to carry people along. If they are living large, if you are displaying this level of flamboyance, I mean, how do you convince people to
How do you convince people you can't afford 490,000 naira minimum wage?
So that's the disparity in views. You need to carry people along, set the right tone, set the right examples. Moving in a couple of 10 cars to me is unnecessary. I mean, this Nigeria, when Murtala was attacked, it was in his Mercedes 230. No pilot car, no escort car. General Obasanjo, when he was military head of state, was using a 504. And we were even more prosperous then. So what has changed? We can't be living like Americans. Is our GDP close to the American GDP? So we need to be more realistic at government level, live on a lower level. Let's tighten belt at that governmental level.
So it will be easier.
When people see that example, then it will be easier to talk to them, and then they will be easy to reason with you.
All right, but talking about this, what we're seeing now, what we're expecting from the finance minister, what should we see? What are you expecting? Basically, because he has 48 hours to get this done. What do you expect to see? When
the last minister spoke, he was talking about something that is sustainable, that is feasible. In order not to drive private sector businesses into extinction, there might be some increment coming up, but I would not expect something close to 400,000, definitely. Right. Maybe something between that 60,000 and the 100,000. Maybe they will arrive at something. But whatever it is, we shouldn't even do something that will be injurious to our naira. Right. What's the point of having 400,000 and using 100,000 to buy a loaf of bread? Does it make sense to anyone? Do we want to go the way of Zimbabwe? So all these things, they have to be looked at critically. Yeah, so much to look at, definitely. But now, I got this report from the IMF there showing that over 720,000 public servants, the federal government had over 720,000 public servants in 2022. Okay. So looking at this number, definitely, it is a lot. And we're seeing the likes of, massive companies like Google, Microsoft, cutting, labor force at this point, with the issues, the macro issues at this time. Talk to me about what, the government should be doing about cutting, this excesses, at this point, because I don't know why you need 720,000, public servants right there. What do you think? I think beyond the numbers now, it's the larger concern is about the level of productivity that each staff brings to bear on the system. But again, there is also call it the CSR effect. Government wants to keep as many people as possible in employment for social reasons, such that at least, let's be, it's more of a social responsibility. Right. Because, when we go into government offices, you see a lot of people coming in at 10 a.m., leaving at 2 p.m. So there are issues around productivity. If all of them are productively engaged, you will bring more to the system than you are taking out. That's the way, that's what the private sector does. You bring more into the system than you take out. That's why private sector can afford to pay salaries. So government can, and the natural consequence of all this wage increase usually will be downscaling the labor, the staff strength. Usually that's the trend. Each time there is an increase in minimum wage, government retrenches staff. But I'm not so much concerned about the number, but make sure everybody that is in the system is productively engaged and can add value into the system. That's where the question lies. Right, so it's about productivity, not about number of It's not staff. Necessarily about numbers. Right. Government can let go of areas that are strictly business and restrict itself to core civil service departments. Any agency that looks like a commercial entity can be farmed out under one arrangement or the other, maybe commercialization, privatization, whatever. You let that one go to run as a business. But the core civil service, you have to make sure that every person that's in the civil service is constructively engaged and is productive. Right. That's the bigger issue. Okay, then definitely we know the macro issues at this time. We're seeing inflation at new highs. We're also seeing food inflation rate. That's also over 40%. At this time. So definitely, these issues are what is informing, we raise minimum wage, definitely. Yeah. Seeing how devalued the naira is at this time. So I'm wondering if we're able to, get most of these macroeconomic headwinds out of the way, then 100,000 naira won't be bad as minimum wage, I'm guessing. It is these economic indices that we are even mostly worried about, the need for them to stabilize. We can't have a situation where cost of inputs into business, they change on a daily basis. inflation keeps rising, interest rates, they keep rising. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for businesses. It's not even good for individuals. Because even at individual level, you plan your income against your expenditure. You can't buy something at 100 naira in the morning and the evening it's already costing 250. So there is a need to stabilize the forex rates, the interest rates, have a cap on inflation. You see, we have to let the naira breathe. Otherwise, we are injuring our currency. And that's why I'm saying, what's the point of earning 400,000 if you are going to spend 100,000 naira to earn a loaf of bread? So there is a need to, because, you know, formerly businesses used to have yearly budgets, which they run too. But where their cost of inputs change on a daily basis, how do you plan? How do you operate effectively? Because that means you'll be changing your goods, prices of your goods and services on a daily basis too. But the consumer's pocket is not quite elastic. People are actually earning lower, realistically. Because if you're on the same wage 2 years ago as at now, you are probably earning, in terms of what it can buy, about 30% of what we are earning 2 years ago. And that's why inventories are growing for businesses if they cannot sell, and that's why some businesses are operating at 19% capacity. I know these companies I'm talking about. I don't have to name any names. You know, a company that's supposed to be operating at 100% or 60 minimum, running at 19, 20%. It's not good for businesses.
Right, and looking at our debt, level at this time, because the government needs funding.
Yeah.
To make this happen, increase minimum wage, they need funding. They need all that, revenue, coming in from oil and other sources at this time. But looking at where we are, at this time, let's look at the economy now, the Nigerian economy. If we get this minimum wage, increase, but we continue, with status quo at this time, where's this economy going?
Government needs money. But I think this 4 yearly terms for politicians is a problem in itself. It's not allowing us to plan forward, maybe for the next 20 years. Okay, the difference between these countries where our youths run to and here is because those ones are planning for the next generation. So our youths can go there, find jobs, because they are planning for excess capacity in terms of everything, in terms of jobs, roads, energy, supply, everything. So after that can come in and be effectively absorbed. But if we are eating our tomorrow today, what are we leaving for the next generation? And that's basically the difference. So now to expand government income is not just about taxes. I'm just naming an example. It's not just about focusing on taxes. We have a lot of, several undeveloped areas. Our mineral sector is not even being looked at properly. That's an area that can employ millions of people, generate more taxes for government. We are not looking at it. If you optimize the agric value chain, that agric sector, right now there is no preservation. You can only eat oranges 2 months in a year. You can only eat bananas 2 months in a year. That's not right. Even in South Africa here, you eat oranges whenever you want, you eat bananas whenever you want, without any significant change in prices. So we've not really exploited the potentials of the agric sector, and that is another sector that can employ far more people and generate more taxes to government. So rather than just look at the 4 years and say, okay, how do I make more money within these 4 years? Let me tax anything taxable. And unfortunately, it's the people that are already paying taxes that are being taxed more. So the unexplored areas, they remain virgin-like, and nobody is thinking about them, thinking that, okay, maybe to do anything serious about these sectors may exceed my 4-year term. Let me just tax the people that are paying taxes more. That's not the right way to look at things.
So we need to do a lot, when it comes to
do a lot.
Leadership, at the leadership level.
Yes.
How we spending for the future.
In fact, ideally, we should have some policies, some plans for the future that ensures that whichever government that is in place, doesn't derail from that plan that we've got. They key into it. Every activity keys into it. Look, South Africa, no matter what we say about them, okay, they have inadequate energy supply issues also, and so on. But they've got a strategy for the African continent. Multi-choice is everywhere. MTN is everywhere. Stanbic Bank is everywhere. That's the right way to think. And they're in Africa, are they not? What kind of policy have we got that compares to that? Right. Yes, a few of our banks are outside, but it's more of an individual effort by the banks rather than anything being coordinated by any arm of government. And we have to think deeply. That's the issue that I
think deeply. Definitely, we have a lot to think about at this time, and now we have this pause. I guess we should just expect the best and some kind of consensus, about minimum wage,
so that we can move forward.
So we can move on.
But again, as a last word, let me say this: beyond our knowledge of economics, beyond our knowledge of statistics, whatever, wisdom is key. Without wisdom, you can't have purposeful leadership. That's very important.
Very important. Thank you so much. We'll leave it there now, Mr. Shola Badimo. He's the Director General of NACCIMA. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Lade.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Handshake. Thank you so much. All right, so after the break, we're going to head straight to the markets. I'm going to check on what's happening with the banking counter on the NGX. That's in a moment. Do stay with us.